Hey, what's ready? Welcome back to News Dose, and I know Xbox has been just all over the place this past month. You know, they've been in the news a lot, and I mean a lot. Unfortunately for them, mostly for all of the wrong reasons. But today is a little bit different. For a change, we actually got some really good news for their next generation console that might actually make it more enticing. Now, will this be a game changer that makes it just fly off shelves? Yeah, I mean, I don't know about all that, but it is still really good news at the end of the day, and we will get into that here in just a bit. Now, we also have an update for PlayStation and a potential acquisition that has been speculated on this past week. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go and get right into things, though, starting off with Forza Motorsport. A few months back, Microsoft laid off a large portion of the Turn 10 studio, and this raised some red flags for fans of the series. You know, they've been asking, is this the end for the Forza Motorsport series? You know, are they just going to become a support studio for Playground Games and the Forza Horizon series? And like I said back then, I don't think that's what's actually happening. To me, if they were going to do that, they would, most likely just simply close off the entire studio. But the fact that they kept the studio intact told me that they'll likely return to the series later down the road, and at that point, they could always ramp their staff back up. Well, Phil Spencer has now confirmed that yes, Forza Motorsport does have a future after all. He was asked about it, and he responded by saying, regarding Forza Motorsport, sometimes we need to shift focus to games that need to ship sooner. We understand the reaction many had when we scaled back Turn 10 Studios. We have many games we want to support with care, and sometimes we give development teams more time to avoid putting them under constant strain. Our current structure with multiple studios allows for this flexibility. So in other words, Forza Motorsport still currently has a future, but for the time being, Turn 10 will instead focus on Horizon and DLC for the current Forza Motorsport game. My guess is that they'll consider another Motorsport title after the release of Horizon 6, and then Turn 10 could maybe focus on next-generation consoles, including possibly even the PlayStation 6. Now, that would be very interesting if they were to do that because, Gran Turismo is extremely popular among PlayStation fans. So, would those same fans buy into a Forza Motorsport game? This is definitely one of the most heated rivalries of all time, so what do you think? Let me hear it in the comments below. Now, we also got an update for Battlefield 6 and its free-to-play Battle Royale mode. Now, we all knew that this was eventually coming, and as previously rumored, it will release in 2025. It's now officially slated for October 28th, and yes, you heard that right. It will be out tomorrow. So, if you're into Battle Royale type of games, and if you like Battlefield 6, then go ahead and prepare. Now, I will be curious to see how it's received come tomorrow, because this is even more competition for the upcoming Call of Duty. Of course, Activision early in the year claimed that they weren't worried about Battlefield 6 because in their eyes, Call of Duty is just simply too big to fail. And okay, while that might partially be true, doesn't necessarily mean the Battlefield can't put a dent into Microsoft's internal expectations for Call of Duty, which I think we've all learned is very high. That sweeping 30% profit accountability that Microsoft wants for their gaming division. So, we'll see what happens over the next few months, but Battlefield 6 has definitely put itself on the map, and we're going to see if that continues with their new free-to-play Battle Royale mode. Oh, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth as well as Part 3 have seemingly been confirmed for the Nintendo Switch 2. Yeah, this comes from the Final Fantasy VII Remake co-director in an interview with the Video Games Chronicle, where he said, Nintendo players in the future, you really don't need to worry at all. They're going to get a version that is just as satisfying and just as high quality as the first game, if not even higher. Now, I think him adding in the word higher is a bit optimistic here, but I will say that if you look at Final Fantasy VII Remake and the job that they've done for the Switch 2, it holds up extremely well compared to other platforms. So as long as that stands true for the final release, then yeah, they're doing an outstanding job to the point that it might actually be the most impressive game visually for the Switch 2. Now, at the same time, though, I am going to point out here that Rebirth struggles on the base PlayStation 5. I mean, okay, yes, its performance is perfectly fine. There's no problem there. But there is a big drop-off in terms of image quality compared to Final Fantasy VII Intergrade. It's got that Vaseline-like filter look to it, whereas Intergrade is just beautiful through and through. Now, they did fix that problem on the PlayStation 5 Pro by implementing PSSR. So maybe with NVIDIA DLSS, they can do something similar for the Switch 2. But my point is that Rebirth has struggled on a more powerful console. So in my eyes, it's really a wait-and-see type of thing. But as long as it holds up decently, then, I mean, I still view that as an incredible feat. Because having the option to play a game like this on a handheld console, I think that's amazing in its own right. I think these are really just amazing games in general, and I'm thrilled to see them come to more consoles, including Part 3, which has essentially been confirmed that there will be no exclusivity when it eventually launches. Yeah, I'm going to go and call that a win for all gamers, including the franchise itself. All right, now let's just go and talk about Xbox, because it seems like every single day there's a new story. And this past month, that hasn't exactly worked into their favor until possibly today. Yes, we actually have some really good news here as long as this holds true. So what's happening here is that Jez Corden dropped a big report over on Windows Central. Now, I'm going to drop a link in the description below, but he talked about their next generation console and some of their plans. And check this out. He said that it will feel like a traditional console, but will have the power of a Windows gaming PC. In other words, this is going to be a super premium console that not only can play your entire Xbox library, but also you're going to be able to play PC games from other storefronts like Steam, GOG, and of course the Epic Game Store. Now that also means that, yes, you're going to be able to play PlayStation games that are on Steam, which, that's big news in its own right. But the thing is that we've mostly known about all of this already. I mean, if you've been following this channel, we've been talking about this exact setup for about a year now. But this is where things start to get very interesting, because we also got some new information. He also claimed that right now, I'm told the current plan is for the next Xbox specifically to have no paywall for multiplayer. It wouldn't make a lick of sense for a PC to have paid multiplayer, particularly since it would create a strong incentive for players to simply install Steam instead of use the Xbox ecosystem on that device for online games. It remains to be seen if that plan actually plays out into reality, though. So, that is important to keep in mind here. He isn't confirming that this is 100% going to come to fruition, but it is something that they're at the very least considering. And this really would be pretty big if they were to finally axe paid multiplayer after all of these years. I mean, really, it would almost be poetic to a degree, just considering that Xbox was the first of the big three to charge for online gaming. I mean, this goes all the way back to the original Xbox Live Gold in the early 2000s, and then eventually PlayStation with the PlayStation 4, and then Nintendo adopted their own online services years and years later. Here's the thing, though. I think they've probably been considering this for a very long time, but the problem that Xbox keeps running into is just how much money are they going to lose by axing online multiplayer. I mean, how many people are specifically subscribed for that one sole reason? But at the same time, as Jez pointed out, if they truly have a PC console hybrid that can also play other storefronts, well then yeah, they could also lose money that way if everybody just buys everything on Steam instead. So that could change how they approach this entire situation, and I mean, I hope it does. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we still have to pay to play online multiplayer games. In fact, I think that it keeps a lot of people away from some of these online multiplayer games. I mean, I was literally just talking to my friend about this last week. He grew up as a big Battlefield fan, but he told me that he doesn't want to buy Battlefield 6 on console because he doesn't want to pay for its online multiplayer on top of the already $70 asking price that you have to pay for Battlefield 6. And also think about this from another perspective. A lot of people are playing free-to-play games like Fortnite, and for those games, you don't have to pay for online multiplayer. So when you think about the younger audience specifically that prefers Fortnite. Well, one reason for that is that they're much more accessible. They don't have to pay $70, nor do they have to pay for online subscriptions. So again, that paid online model quite literally keeps some people from playing specific games. So yeah, I hope they get rid of it. Now, will this be a game changer for the next Xbox to the point that it's going to fly off shelves? I mean, I don't think so. I think it will make it more enticing, but I continue to believe that the next generation Xbox is going to be more on the niche side of things. And I think Xbox is fine with that. I mean, it's going to be a very expensive device. I'm expecting more than $1,000. And it's not going to have exclusives. However, its three big selling points seems to be taking shape. Those big selling points could be free multiplayer, Steam games on an Xbox console that will include backwards compatibility, and it's also possibly going to be the most powerful console in the market by a pretty large margin. So I still think with all of that, it will have an audience, even if it's not necessarily as large as the other more popular consoles. I think that if Xbox sells 10 to 30 million, yeah, that's going to be a lot lower than the PlayStation 6. It's going to be a lot lower than the Nintendo Switch 2, but I think Xbox is perfectly fine with that, considering they do have other avenues to sell their games, as we've seen these past 2 years. So right now, I do believe that they're going to have a niche premium device, or at least that's my prediction. All right, now one more thing before we go, though, because Sony denied any interest in Warner Brothers. Of course, last week, Warner Brothers announced that they are open for an acquisition, and Sony was obviously a big talking point among gamers. You know, the idea that they could grab IP like Batman, Harry Potter, and Mortal Kombat is definitely interesting to say the least, but Sony put that speculation to rest. Sony CEO said that right now we don't want to do a big Hollywood merger and acquisition deal. We want to build a solid base in our strengths of anime and games. So there it is. Unless Warner Brothers decides to sell individual franchises and studios, then Sony just won't be interested. And that's actually what I alluded to last week. Sony might be dominant in the gaming space, but you also have to understand that they don't have as much capital as some of these other companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Netflix, Apple, Disney, etc., etc. And when you talk about an acquisition of this size, it's going to attract those type of companies, specifically the ones that want to make a big splash in film streaming entertainment. I think the only way a game company gets involved is if they can buy an individual franchise and studio. And I can't foresee that happening with any of the franchises that I just mentioned, other than maybe Mortal Kombat, just because that is a gaming-centric franchise. As for Harry Potter and the DC Universe, though, those are too important for the film industry. Warner Brothers is likely going to want to use those to make a big buyout more enticing, or at least that's how I view this situation. Now, to be clear, even though Microsoft has the capital, I did mention them a moment ago, but I don't expect them to make a move either. They already have their hands full with Activision Blizzard, and regulations could also get involved if they were to try Warner Brothers as well. So I fully expect a buyout to come from a typically non-gaming company, unless maybe Tencent wants to try, but that would likely trigger some major alarms for United States regulators. They would probably try to shut that down, so I don't think that's going to happen either. Let me know what you all think about this, though. Give me your predictions in the comments below. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. But until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.